Swagatam. Today is Saturday, Sthiravasaraha, 10th of March, Dashamo Dinankaha. So the Pratamo Bhagaha, Vyakaranam, Tinganta Prakranam, Yastu Mangalacharanam, Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate, Ramam Ramesham Bhaje, Ramena Bhihata Nishachara Chamu, Ramaya Tasmai Namaha, Ramanasti Parayanam Padataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham, Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhotame Bhorama Mamuttara, Rama Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame, Sahasranama Tattadyam Ramanama Varanane, Shri Ramanama Varanana Onnama Iti. Atha Shri Maheshwara Sutrani, Ai Urn, Rulrak, Eong, Ayauch, Hayavarat, Lanya Nyamanga Na Nam Javan Gadadash Jaba Gadadash Kapa Cha Cha Tsa Cha Cha Tsa Pai Sha Sha Sar Hal Iti Mahashra Sutrani. Okay. Last time I think we were just gave this sutram for homework. I think last sutram we did last class was Graholiti Dirgha, which you already had some examples, I think. As always, the backbone of these classes are the daily examples which you get. So please look at them. And thanks to Kumud and Raja for working on those every day. And if you see any errors, any comments, anything, let us know. We'll make the corrections. So, usual disclaimer, anything we say in the class is only Vichara Moolam. It is food for thought. Not the final word. So final word is Siddhanta Kaumudi or Mahabhashyam or Ashtadhyayi. Okay. Now this next sutram which I think we gave from homework was, this is all some operations which come into play when we have the Dhrit Lakara coming in. And this one is Sriji Drishor Jhalyamakiti. Look at the number 6158. Sriji Drishor Jhalyamakiti. So this is before we start the Samhitayam Adhikaraha, which starts from 6172, starts Samhitayam. Before that we have used 6164 Dhatuva Deshasaha, we have used No Naha, we have used Lopo Vyor Vali, we have used Vera Pruktasya, we have used Halnya Vyodirgha Sutisya Pruktam Hal. So we have used Eng Raswa Sambuddhe. So we have used Raswasya Piti Kriti Tuk. Well, that we may not have used so much, but we have used a lot of rules in this section. So here is one sutram in between here, which says that Sriji Drishor Jhalyamakiti. In fact, we have also used this one. Vibheter Hetu Bhaye we have used. So between this section, which started from here, Adech Upadesha Shiti, and then prior to this, Samhitayam and all that, in between comes the sutram, which is Sriji Drisho Jhalyamakiti. And by this time, I think the sutra should be getting easier and easier for you to figure out. There's nothing really that complicated about it. It says that when followed by a akit, which means, look at the vritti first, Anayoramagamaha sya Jaladavakiti. So Anayoho means Sriji Drishoho. So these two dhatus, Srij and Drish, which is Srija Visarge, it's in the Devadiganaha and also in the Tudadiganaha. And dhatu Drishir Prekshane in the Bhadiganaha, they take a Agamaha. But when do they take an Agamaha? When followed by a pratyaya Jaladi and Akit. Akit Jaladi Pratyayaha. So Srijidrishoho Jalyamakiti says Anayoramagasya Jaladavakiti. Jaladavakiti. So let's take an example here. Let's take the example Drakshasi, which comes in Gita. Derived from Dhatu Drish, Drishir Prekshane. Vyaksha is Rit, Kati Pragaha, Madhya Purusha, Ekvachanam. Yena Bhutanya Sheshena Drakshasyatmanyatho Mai. Drakshasyatman means you will see. You shall see, you will see. Drakshasi. First of all, you know the sutram which we use in the Latlakar, etc., which makes the Pashya Adesha. Yeah, Pashyadesha, which comes by 7378, Pa, Ghra, Dhma, Sthamna, Dan, Darshi, Darsh, Darshyarti, Darshian Arti. So this Darshyarti. So that one doesn't come into play here. So Drishi, Arti, Sarti, etc. So because that is only Shiti Parataha. So we always keep that in mind that Drish takes the Pashyadesha. So that sutram we have studied, because see, whenever Panini mentions a sutram specifically, I mean a dhatu or any term specifically in a sutram, then we should always pay attention to that, why Panini is putting that, So in this sutram we had, Pa, Ghra, Dhama, etc. In that sutram we had seen the dhatu drishya, so drishyarti. So in that drishi and arti. So, but there it takes only pasya adesha only when a shit pratyaya, when the shakara is an it follows. We're not going to have that over here. So that's number one point to make. Because here when we add the usual steps, when you add the pratyaya rit shecha, we have already seen that in the previous class. Anubandha lopaha as usual by halantyam. Upadesha Ittasya Lopaha, and then we bring in the Pratyaya Sip by default. All these steps are all common as before. Then Halantyam Tasya Lopaha, we get Drish plus C, and then after that we get Satasi Lutoho, also same Purvat. And the Dhatu Drish is Anudattu Padesha. Whenever you have Pratyaya which is Valadi and which has a sanya of Ardhadhatukam, then always think about Ardhadhatukasya Valadehe. And then whenever you think of 7 to 35, immediately check with 7 to 10 to see if maybe there may be a in Nishedha. And sure enough, this dhatu, which is dhatu drish, it says here Talavya Shanteshu. What all do we have? Because this is a listing of those dhatus which end in a hal, which are ekach, anudattu padeshaha. So shanteshu, krusha, damsha, disha, drisha. So this dhatu is anudattu padesha. So therefore, verse 7 to 10, ekach padesha anudattat in nishedha. So then there's no idagamaha. One more usual reminder is the pratyaya takes the idagamaha, not the dhatu. The dhatu only disallows or allows the idagamaha to come. So now that is important because the sutram Sriji Drishor Jhalyam Kiti requires Jhali. So if they were Idagama, if they were to be Idagama, we could not use 6158. So first we have to establish the Idagama is not there. Then only we can try to use 6158. So now that Idagama has been stopped, now we can use 7158 because the I'm sorry, there's a typo here. I'm sorry, I guess I didn't catch that. No. Let me correct the typo. I don't want to keep the typo there. Give me 1 second, please, because I made a typo here. Should be 6158, not 7158. Give me 1 second, please. Give me 1 second. Yes, the sutram is 6158, not 7158. So let me just correct that right now. If you see any typos on the board, please let me know. We'll correct that because the Srijidrishor Jhalyam Kiti is 6158, not 7158. 7158 is Iditonum Dhato. That also we know, but this one is 6158. So now that this Idagama is stopped by 7 to 10, let's check all the conditions now. We have the Dhatu Drish, so it's 6158, okay? So we have the Dhatu Drish, so because this Sutram 6158 only applies to two Dhatus, Srij and Drish. And if the Pratyaya following is Jhaladi, it is not a Kit Pratyaya, nothing to make Kit over here. So then what happens is that this Dhatu Drish takes the Amagamaha. Then of course, Midachontyaat Paraha, it goes after the last Ach in this, which is Rikaraha. And then the usual Anubandha Lopaha. First thing you want to do before using any term is to do the Anubandha Lopaha. So we Halantyam Tasya Lopaha. And after that, we apply Ikko Yanachi. If you use the Repha Desha in place of Rikara, we get the Repha Desha, becomes Drash. Then after that, only Sandhi. So these are all now Sandhi rules only. So Ikko comes, then comes the Vrashcha, Srija, Mrija, Yajaraja, Brajashchasham, Shaha. So we get the Murdhanya Shakara Desha because we have a Dhatu ending in a Talavya Shakaraha. It's followed by a jal letter. So this is jali padante. Followed by jal letter, we get the murdhanya shakara adeshaha. So we get the drash prasyasi and shado kasi. A murdhanya shakara or dhakara takes the kakara adeshaha when the sakara follows. So this murdhanya shakara now takes the kakara adeshaha. And of course, then finally, adesha pratyaya yoho, we get the murdhanya shakara adesha for the sakara of sya. The sakara of sya is a pratyaya vajavaha, and it is preceded by a letter of the kavargaha. So to 8359 only applies if the sakara is preceded by inko, by the in pratyaya letter or the kavarga letter. So we get drakshasi, and then of course the ka and the murdhanya sha becomes ksha, drakshasi. So one more time, Sutram 6158 only applies to two dhatus, sriji drishoho. They take the amagamaha, the amagamaha, and the pratyaya following is jaladi akit. In our case, the pratyasya remained jaladi because there was no idagamaha. Idagamaha was stopped by 7 to 10. Kadrish is yanudhatu padesha dhatuho, and we got the amagamaha, anubandha lopaha, then yan sandhi, then the murdhanya shakara adeshaha for the talavya shakaraha by 8 to 36, rashchetyadi. Then we got the shadohkasi, kakara adeshaha, and then after that adesha pratyaya yoho. So that was one sutram which we just finished off last time. Now, this time I want to take these 2 or 3 rules away, at least one this main rule, which is not really applied that much. But, it's an interesting rule which is used in the passive forms. Now, in the passive, the first thing in the passive, what we say, bhavakarmanoho, is the impersonal passive or the passive with the object. So, for example, maya tasthiyate. So the action of staying is done by me here, which means that, it sounds very clumsy in English, which means that I'm staying here. So that is what's called bhave, akarmaka dhatuhu. When there's no intransitive verb, it becomes impersonal passive. It becomes like, the action of staying is being done. Otherwise, of course, you can have the passive, when you say Ramaha Sitam Pashyati, Ramena Sita drishyate. That's sakarmaka dhatu taking passive. So bhavakarmano, impersonal passive or the passive for transitive verbs. Yeah, that time the main thing to remember is this 1-3-13 bhavakarmano. Bhavakarmano is that only atmanepadam can be used. That's our first indication. So basically, if atmanepadam is not used, is not there, then it's not a passive form. It's an active form, as simple as that. So one more, we said this in the class many times, but if the pratyaya which is used is not atmanepadam, it is not a passive form. It's an active form. Now, atmanepadam doesn't come only in the passive. Atmanepadam, we don't know, it could be active or passive. But if it is passive, it has to be atmanepadam. Or alternately, if parasmanepadam is being used, it is not a passive form. So that is the main rule. And then we had this rule which we looked at, which was sarvadhatuke yak. Sarvadhatuke yak, but that's only sarvadhatuke. So right now when we make a form like in the lit lakara or the lut lakaraha or the lut lakaraha, we don't have a sarv pratyaya, we don't have a sarvadhatuka pratyaya following the dhatu. So pratyaya yak will, our passive marker, so to speak, yak will not come here. So now how do we then determine if it's an active or passive form? If atmanepadam is being used, now we can check if the dhatu is parasmapadi and atmanepadam is being used, then that's a very strong indication that there's probably a passive form. For example, we can look at this dhatu, we can look at in Bhagavad Gita, yajnatva mokshase shubha. So in chapter 9 of Gita, very first shloka, says, idam tute guhyatamam pravakshyamyana suyave jnanam vijnasitam yajnatva mokshase shubhat. So mokshase. So mokshase means you will be released from this. So this is a passive form, mokshase shubhat. Now the dhatu much, if it is only parasmapadi, that's a very strong indication that that's a passive form. But if dhatu much may be ubhayapadi, then we have to look at the remaining parts of the sentence. Determine this. So let's this dhatu muchlu is ubhayapadi. Yeah. So unfortunately now we cannot tell that's an active or passive. We need to look at it from the context. Context says ashubhat to moksha say means that you will be released. So we have to look at the remaining part of the sentence now to determine whether moksha says active or passive. So one more time, in the passive, only atmanipadam can be used. So if parasyapadam is present, then it's not a passive form. And if atmanipadam is present, then we can check the dhatu and see the dhatu is parasyapadi or atmanipadi. Now in the active sense, most dhatus are parasyapadi, only a few atmanipadi. So if you find a dhatu which is parasyapadi in the active form, now it has taken atmanipada pratyaha, that means that is probably a passive form. But then the one warning there is that this vyavastha of atmanipadam and parasyapadam is not strictly for in the active forms. So a dhatu may be listed as parasyapadi in the dhatu patha, which means that it should take parasyapada pratyaya in kartari, but that may not be honored all the time. So we cannot be 100% sure. See, one thing we can be almost 100% sure, if parasyapadam is used, it's not a passive form. But if atmanipadam is used, we can really never be 100% sure. We have to check the context, we have to check the sentence and see whether the karta has gone in the tritiya vibhakti. Then we can see, for example, Ramena Sita Drishyate. So Ramena, so Rama is the karta, became tritiya vibhakti. So we have not done the character prakaranam yet, but we have to look at the remaining part of the sentence to give us a clue. We can get a clue because the dhatu is parasyapadi in dhatu patha. Then barring an arsha prayogaha, this is probably a passive form if atmanipadam has been used with such a dhatu. But we can never be 100% sure because sometimes, even in the active, it may have taken atmanipada pratyaha, irregularly. That's not totally uncommon. So that is where we stand. Is when you see a rit prayogaha. If we see parasyapadam, it definitely is not passive. If we see atmanipadam, we can check the dhatu and see, and we can get a very good idea. But finally, we have to check the context, remaining parts of the sentence. Now, with that background, let's look at the sutram. But sometimes there is an indication of some special forms giving in the passive. Otherwise, so besides this atmanipadam, there is no really 100% indication there is a passive form. But there are some exceptions, and this is the one exception, is that when certain pratyas follow, there is a special angakaryam for certain dhatus in the passive only. Let's look at this sutram. Sya sich siyuttasishu bhavakarmano upadeshe jad upadeshe jana upadeshe jad upadeshe jana graha drisham vachinvad itcha. I think Ravi is better deciding this sutra than I am, but sya sich siyuttasishu bhavakarmano upadeshe jana graha drisham vachinvad itcha. Vidu padacheda sya sich siyuttasishu bhavakarmano upadeshe ajjana graha drisham vachinvad itcha. Okay, let's look at this in piece by piece. So basically, we should have sya, sich, siyut or tas following. Then bhavakarmanoho means in the passive. Upadeshe jana graha drisham. Upadeshe ajhana graha drisham. There's sandhi being done here. Ajhana. This ach and hana become ajhana. That sandhi rule, of course, we have learned, which is jayoho anyatarasyam. So in this sutram, the sandhi operation being done by jayoho anyatarasyam. So this hakara has become a jakara desha. Jayoho anyatarasyam becomes purva savarnaha. Hakara becomes purva savarnaha. So bhavakarmano rupadeshe jana graha drisham. So in the passive, a dhatu which ends in a ach, which is in upadesha. Upadesha means what? The original instruction or the technical instruction, which means sutra patha, dhatu patha, unadi kosha, etc. But basically the ashtadhyayi patha, vidyavartika patha, and that not the regular language, the technical instruction language. So here Upadesha means that it means it should be in the Sutra Patha or Dhatu Patha. Now one little complication is that this doesn't mean that Dhatu has to be in the Dhatu Patha ending in a Acha. This Sutram says that the way the Sutram is interpreted is that the Dhatu should end in a Ach and the Ach should be in Upadesha. Now why is it put like that rather than simply saying the Dhatu should be in the Dhatu Patha ending in a Ach? The reason is that when you make a causative form, we're going to see an example later on today. You see an example down here. When we make a causative form and add a pratyaya nicha. Now, take the example over here, this dhatu shamu upashame. When you add pratyaya nich, now nich is not in the dhatu patha. Dhatu shamu is in dhatu patha. In the dhatu patha, sham does not end in the acha. But when we add this as a causative affixed by hetu maticha and go through the steps and form the dhatu shami, which we'll do the details in a second. Now shami is a dhatu. It ends in a ach, and the ach, which is a nich in this case, is in upadesha because it is prescribed by the sutram hetu maticha, which is in the dhatu sutra patha. So when this sutram says upadeshe ajantam, it means that the dhatu should end in a ach and the ach should be in upadesha. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So here, even though the nich is not in the dhatu patha, when we make the dhatu shami by adding the pratyaya nich and making a causative form, now we have a dhatu because sanadhyanta dhatavaha. We have a dhatu now ending in a ach, and the ach is in upadesha in the sutra patha. The sutra patha. And then there are other three dhatus here, which is hana, graha, and drishya, which are of course these individual dhatus: hana, himsa, himsagatyoho, graha upadane, and drishya prekshana. So these three dhatus, as well as any dhatu which ends in a ach and the ach is in upadesha, then what happens to them? They can optionally get chinvad. Chinvad means the anga karyam will be as if the pratyaya chin is following. Now what is chin? The chin we have not yet studied. We will be studying the chin pratyaya shortly, but right now we don't need to concern with what is chin, because we are only worried about the operations which take place on the angam when the chin pratyaya is being used. So even though we have not studied the pratyaya chin, the chin will be coming as chin te padaha chin. So that one, is pratyaya chin, which we have not studied yet. We'll be studying it shortly, but we'll use that later. Chin Vyakaranam. So we'll see the chin pratyaya short. But right now all it matters to us is that in the passive, when one of these pratyas are used, sya, sich, siyut, and tasi, then right now we're focusing the pratyaya sya, but of course the pratyaya tasi also we have learnt, and the pratyas, the siyut is an agama which also we have learnt when the ling pratyaya takes the siyut agamaha, and then sich we'll be seeing a little bit later. We have not learned sich yet. The sich comes in lung lakara, so we can just ignore sich for the time being. We'll come back to it. So when one of these pratyas follows, then in the passive, a dhatu which ends in ach and the ach is in upadesha, or one of these dhatus, han, graha, or drish, they optionally have angakaryam like the chin pratyaya is following. And when that happens, itcha. There is also an idagamaha necessarily. So which means that when the chinvat bhava is done, then the idagamaha comes directly by this sutram necessarily. So there are two cases. Chinvat bhava is there, chinvat bhava is not there. If chinvat bhava is there, in that case, the idagamaha is nityam by this sutram 6462, not by 7235. Doesn't matter what the dhatu is. The dhatu might be said, and it doesn't matter. Chinvat bhava pakshe, nityam it. The it has to be there. So one last time, one of these four pratyas when they follow, sya, sich, siyut, or tas. Of course, siyut is an agamaha. So but a pratyaya which has a siyut agamaha, or the pratyaya tas. Then in the passive, a dhatu which ends in a ach, which is in upadesha, or the dhatu han, graha, and drish, optionally there is a Chinvat angakaryam. The angakaryam like as if the pratyaya chin is following. And when that happens, the idagama comes necessarily by this sutra. When Chinvat bhava is not there, then we get the usual form, whatever it might be. So this is only talking about an optional form which takes place when the angakaryam takes place as if the pratyaya chin is following, and this pratyaya, sya, sich, whatever it might be, has to take, necessarily takes idagama in that case. So let's look at the vritti. It's a bit of complicated sutram, and to be very honest with you, it's not used too much, but it's an interesting sutram just to point out to you the importance that in the passive, sometimes we may have some special forms. Besides our usual friend, which is Vyakaranam 1-3-13, sometimes there might be some special other things. And as I also said, that 3-1-67, which is Sarvadhatuke yak, cannot be used here. That Sarvadhatuke yak is, of course, Sarvadhatuke. We don't have that over here. It says, Upadeshe yo ach, Chadantanam. So dhatu ending in ach, which is an Upadesha. Then Hanadinam, which is Hanagraha Drisha. Chini iva angakaryam. Angakaryam takes place as if chin pratyaya follows. Optionally, this is all va. Vasyat. And then syadishu, when one of these pratyayas follow. Sya, sich, then siyut, which is an agamaha, and tas. Then bhavakarmanoho. This is all only bhavakarmanoho. Only in the passive we are talking about. Gamyamanayoho, when the intention is to express a passive form, a passive action. Syat. Then syadinam idagamascha. And he said, Chinvat bhava pakshe ayamit. So in Chinvat bhava pakshe, in that optional form, when we treat the pratyaya like Chinvat, then the pratyaya has to take idagamaha. Okay, so in the passive voice, when followed by the affix sya, sich, siyut, of course siyut is an agamaha, so technically it's a affix which has a siyut agamaha, or the pratyatas, then a base angam optionally undergoes the same operations as if chin pratyaya is following. And if the base consists of one of the following, any verbal root ending in a vowel which is in upadeshaha, sutra patha or dhatu patha, dhatu han, graha or drish in the adadiganaha, kriyadiganaha, and the bhadiganaha. And in this optional case, when chinvat bhava is done, the affix here, sich, siyut, or tas has to get the idagamaha. Let's take an example. Let's take simple example, dhatu bhu, sattayam. But this time we're going to look at it karmani, bhava in the passive. What happens here is that the first steps are the same. So, lit, she, shecha, we get the lit in bhavishyat, and anubandha lopaha. Then now by tiptajji, but remember bhava karmanoho, 1-3-13. Never forget bhava karmanoho. Is that in the passive? In the passive, only atmanipadam can be used, bhava karmanoho. Very important sutra, bhava karmanoho. So now what happens is that we have to use a pratyaya ta. Now, bhava means it has to be third person singular only, because bhava signifies an action. There's one more thing, means bhave prayogaha. It has to be pratham purusha ekvachanam only. There's no bhave prayoga with anything else, because bhava means it signifies an action. The action is being done. The action of that verb is being done by someone. So bhave has to be third person singular. I mean, karmani can be anything, but bhave has to be third person singular. Right now we're talking about a pratham purusha ekvachanam. This could be bhave or karmani. But remember one thing is that bhave prayoga has to be third person singular, because it's talking about it, some action is being done, one single action. So here we use atmanipadam, sutangana atmanipadam, and we get the pratyaya ta, because the vivaksha is pratham purusha ekavachanam. Then of course we get tita atmanipadanam tere, then the pratyaya sya, satasi, lutoho. And now there is optionality here now, is that we can have, because the dhatu bhu ends in the ach, which is the ukaraha, and that ukara is in the dhatu partha itself. And we have the pratyaya sya following here. And we are talking about bhava or karma, bhava karmanoho. So all the conditions, always check all the conditions. So upadeshe yo ach. So dhatu bhu ends in the ukara, which is in upadeshe in the dhatu partha. Tadantanam. Dhatu ends in that ukaraha. Hanadinam, we don't have that right now, but we do have this dhatu ending in a ach, which is in upadeshaha. Then chiniva angakaryam. Angakaryam will take place as if chin follows. Vasyat, this optional case. Then syadishu, bhavakramanoho gamyamanayoho. And then syadidam idagamascha. Now two things happen now. Is that this pratyasya takes the idagama. We don't have to check whether dhatu bhu is set, anit, it doesn't matter. In chinvat bhava pakshe, there has to be idagama. So that's one thing you can also look as an indication to see if this sutra is applied or not. If you're thinking of 6462, chinvat bhavaha, there has to be an id agama. If idagama is not there, it's not chinvat bhava pakshe. Okay, so so two things happen here. The anga karyam becomes chin, like as if pratyaya chin is following, which means what? Basically the sya becomes chinvat, which means the pratyaya chin has nakara as an it, so we can do achonyati. So do the vriddhi adesh becomes bhau. So the angam takes vriddhi adesha because the pratyaya sya became chinvat. Chin has a nakara as an it. So achonyati, we do the vriddhi adesha, and then simultaneously idagama has to come. Chinvat bhava pakshe idagama nityam idagama. So now just very easy, we do the of course idagama means you do adyanto takitau and anubandha lopaha, then echo yavaha, and of course adesha pratyayayoho shatvam. So bhavishyate. So we get from bhavishyate. Now this is an optional form. When we don't do chinvat bhavaha, then we get the form bhavishyate, because there we'll only get the gunadesha. The dhatu bhu happens to be a said dhatu. Doesn't matter. In chinvat bhava, you don't have to check. Chinvat bhava pakshe, it nityam it. But chinvat abhava pakshe. So when there's no chinvat bhava, then of course you have to check the dhatu bhu is set on it, because dhatu bhu, because of udrudantaihi. Dhatu ending in a ukaraha is udattu padesha. So it's a said dhatu. So therefore we get the form bhavishya. So when chinvat bhava is not done, the form is bhavishyate. So we get two forms, bhavishyate chinvat bhava pakshe and bhavishyate chinvat abhava pakshe. Okay, so chinvat bhava, when it came, it brought the idagama necessarily, and then because the chin pratyaya is a nakara as a nit, we could apply achoniti. When chinvat bhava is not there, we simply use sarvadhatuka ardhatukayoho gunadesha. That's the difference between these two. So there will be two forms, bhavishyate, bhavishyate in the past. Now let's look at one more angakaryam, chinvat. So what does the chin pratyaya entail? Right now we saw a simple operation, which is the achoniti, because the pratyaya chin is the nit pratyaya. But that's not the only operation. There's another interesting sutram here, 6493. Look at the number, by the way, 6493. Now we already know 6492 very well. 6492 we know very well, mitam rasvaha. Mitam rasva we know very well. So that says that if the dhatu is mit, as makara is a nit, then of course we saw the section of dhatu patha, gatadayo, mitaha and all that. We saw that how a dhatu becomes a mit even though it doesn't have makara as a nit, because in the dhatu patha there are some gana sutrani which tells that this certain section of dhatus, the gatadayaha, they become mit. So we saw all that. So if you want to revise, if you want to do some revision, you can look at 6492. We have studied that in detail, and we have used that in daily example. If you want to practice this role, you can look on the website and you can look at the search for the sutram. Now this next anantaram sutram, next sutram says chinnamulor dirgonyatrasyam. Chinnamulor dirgonyatrasyam. So we are talking about this mit dhatavaha. Dhatu is makazan it. Now for when the pratyaya and anuvritti of now is coming down. Now is coming down. That's what mitam rasva also with anuvritti of now is coming down. When the pratyaya ni follows. Ni means includes all the ni pratyaya with any anubandha, with any it. So nich, ning, all the various varieties of ni. So ni with any it letter. So nich or ning or whatever it might be, that will be included. So nich, in our case, in that terms, nich is the most common one. So when we have the mit dhatu followed by pratyaya ni, which is followed by either chin or namul, then there will be the upada dirgha optionally anyatarasya. So mitam rasva normally would tell us that if we have a dhatu which is a mit, makara as an it, followed by the pratyaya ni, then we get the rasva desha for the upadha. But now 6493 says that if we have a dhatu which is a mit followed by the ni pratyaya, which is then followed by either chin or namul, then we will get a dirghadesha optionally for the upadha. Let's take an example to make it clear. This pratyaya namul right now we're not studying, so let's leave that for time being. We'll come back to that. Right now we're interested in pratyaya chin. Why? Because we just saw this special rule which makes the pratyaya chinvat in the passive. So now we are understanding why we need chin, because we need to understand which operations are triggered by this chinvat bhavaha. So when the pratyaya chin is there, whatever operations are triggered, we need to know those. We have to apply the same operations here with chinvat bhavaha. Let's take an example. So first of all, look at the vritti. Chin pare, namul pare cha nau. If we have a pratyaya ni, which is itself followed by either chin or namul, then mitam, dhatu nam, a dhatu which is a mit. Upadhayaha dirgha vasyat, vasyat. So there's an optional elongation of the penultimate vowel of a verbal root, which is a mit, which has makara as an it, and is followed by the pratyaya ni, which in turn is followed by either the chin or namul. So basically you should have a mit dhatu followed by ni, followed by either chin or namul. In this case, we can right now we're not talking about namul, so we can leave that for time being. We'll come back to it later. But chin, we are worried about that, because let's look at an example here. Let's look at this dhatu shamu upashame, and when you're talking about the same, we're talking about lit lakara in the passive, karmani atva bhave, and hetumati. We look at a causative form. It's a causative passive, a causative passive form. Then pratham purusha ekvachanam, when we look at that, first we take the dhatu sham, I mean of course upadesha jananasikrit, add the pratyaya nich by hetumati cha, and then we get the atopadhayaha, ata upadhayaha, which means that the upadha akara takes the vridhyadesha, atopadhayaha, because the pratyaya nich has an akara as an it, and then comes mitam rasvaha, because dhatu sham is ending in a and we have this. We have studied the Gana Sutram, which says jani jirush knasuranjo mantascha amantascha. So these dhatu which end in a they're considered to be myths. So even though dhatu shamu does not have sakshat, is not sakshat myth, but by this atidesha, by this extension, that jani jirush knasuranjo mantascha amantascha, they get the sham will be considered as a mit dhatu, and then we do mitam rasvaha. Then of course we do anubandha lopaha by chutu halantyam, and then we get shami. The shami gets dhatu sanya by sanadyanta dhatavaha. So far nothing special. We took sham, we added nich by hetumaticha, we did the upada vriddhi by atopadhayaha, akara vriddhi, and then akarasya vridhyadeshaha, and then after that we did mitam rasvaha, and we get to shami. Now we take shami. Now this shami is a dhatu, has dhatu sanya sanadyanta dhatavaha. It ends in a ach, and the ach is in upadesha, because dhatu nich, sorry, not, excuse me, the pratyaha nich, which was prescribed by hetumaticha. That hetumaticha of course is a sutra in the sutra pathaha, so that nich is being prescribed in the sutra pathaha. So this ikara of shami is a ach, of course, and that is in the upadesha. So therefore shami will not qualify for this sutram, which is sya sich siyutta sishu bhavakarmano upadeshe jana grahadrisham vachinvadicha, because we have upadeshe ach, upadeshe jana, upadeshe ajhana. So we have a ach in upadesha with dhatu ending in that. Pratyasya is going to follow now. So now we're going to get the chinvat bhava optionally. When you go through the steps as before, you take shami plus rit by ritcha and anubandha lopaha. Again, because of bhava karmanoho, that still holds. In passive means bhava karmanoho holds all the time. Pratyata can only be used because we can only use atmane padam, ta atam jo, etc. And the vivaksha is pratham purusha ekvachanam, so pratyata is used. And then we get of course the same thing, tita atmane padanam tere, lakara is a tit lakaraha, the ti bha becomes ekaraha, achontyadi ti, And then we add the pratyaya sya vasyata sil r lutoho. And now we get chinvat bhava optionally. Chinvat bhava option. When chinvat bhava is used, then idagma has to be there. Chinvat bhave nityam it. Chinvat bhava pakshe nityam it. So we get the idagama, the sya becomes chinvat optionally. Because dhatu shami is ending in a vowel ikaraha, which is in upadeshaha, because it was prescribed by Hetumati cha, which is in the sutra pataha. The pratyasya is falling, vivaksha is bhavakarmanoho, so everything is satisfied. We get so sya becomes chinvad optionally. And then what happens is that idagama comes necessarily in chinvad pakshe, chinvad bhava pakshe. And now we go to 6493, which tells us that when the pratyaya ni is followed by either chin or namul and preceded by a dhatu which is mit, then there is a upada dirgha for the angam optionally. So shami now becomes shami optionally. It's become shami and shami optionally. So one more time, we got chinvad bhava optionally. And in that optional case, we got dirgha optionally by 6493. So now we get two forms, shami and shami. Of course, anubandha lopaha, and then shami or shami isyate. Now the interesting thing is that this idagama which came by 6462, not by 7235. This idagama has come by 6462, not by 7235. And don't forget our adhikara of asiddhavadat, asiddhavadatrabhat, asiddhavadatrabhat. Siddhavadatrabhat means that from this 6422 up to end of abhat, including the adhikara of bhasya, basically to end of 6.4. If two rules come and operate on a common element, based on a common element, then they will not see each other's operations. So asiddhavadatrabhat. So this idagamaha, which was done by 6462, will not be seen by niraniti. Aniradav ardhatuke pare nirlopasyat. So when 6461 comes and looks at this situation, it does not see the idagamaha. Why? Because idagama is done by 6462. Both 6461 as well as 6462 are in the adhikara of asiddhavadatrabhat. And they are both now honing in on the same element, which is the idagamaha. So then what happens is that they have samana ashraya. Ashraya is the idagamaha. So idagamaha done by 6462 is not seen by 6451 because of 6422. Asiddhavadatrabhat. Now we see how the adhikara is so important. That's why Panini specifically puts this sutram in the asiddhavatatre adhikara. Adhikara asiddhavat, because he does not want niraniti to see the idagamaha. So then, because it's 6451, which is anidadav ardhatuke pare, which means that anit adav ardhatuke pare, which means the pratyaya falling is isya. Of course, sya sanya of ardhatukam by ardhatukam sheshaha. And even though idagama is there by 6462, 6451 does not see it, because both 6451 and 6462 belong to the adhikara of asiddhavadatrabhat, and they have the samana ashraya, which is the idagamaha. So the idagama done by 6462 is not seen by 6451. So 6451 thinks pratyaya is only sya, not isya. So it comes and does the ner lopaha. So nish takes lopaha, because 6451, which requires the pratyaya to be anit, and it requires it to have the sanya of ardhatukam. Pratyasya has sanya of ardhatukam, and because of asiddhavat, 6451 thinks idagama is not there, and then it does the nich lopaha, ner lopasyat. So now we get sham and sham. And then of course we get the shatvam by adhishapatyaya yoho. We get shamishyate, 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 shamishyate. One more time, the dhatu, we first took the dhatu shamu upashame. We add the pratyaya nich hetumati cha, and then we do the upada vridhi by achorniti, atopadhayaha. Then we do the mitam hrasvaha rudhasva adeshavati upada, And then we get shami as a dhatu asanadhyanta dhatavaha. Now shami ends in a ach, which is the ikaraha. The ikara is in upadesha. It is prescribed by Hetumati cha, 3126, which is sutram in the sutra pataha. And then when we look at a passive form, the bhavakarmanoho ekavachanam, usual step we get shami plus te, then add the pratyasya satasi lutoho. And now 6462 comes and says we have a dhatu ending in a ach. The ach is in upadesha. The sya is falling in bhavakarmanoho, and therefore there will be chinvat. The sya becomes chinvat optionally. When the sya becomes chinvat optionally, then what happens is that we get the dirghadesha optionally for the upadha. So then we get shami and shami. Now that idagama which was done by 6462 is not seen by 6451 because both of them in the adhikara of asiddhavat atrabhat. So therefore 6451 comes and does the nirlopaha. Anidada vardhake pare nirlopasyat. So then we get shamishyate shamishyate. Now this whole thing is optional. Because the chinvat bhava itself is optional. When chinvat bhava is not done, chinvat bhava pakshe, then what happens is that we don't apply the chinvat bhava. We follow the same similar steps. We take shami plus lit and we get shami plus te, following the same steps. Kitapne padam tere. And now we of course get the sya pratyaha by satasi lit. So up to this there are common steps. Shami sya te. Now we get the idagama by 7 to 35 now. Because the dhatu shami is anekach. So we cannot 7 to 10 cannot stop 7 to 35. The 7 to 10 only comes in because of ekach upadeshana dhatat. Shami is anekach. So there is no question of applying 7 to 10. So 7 to 35 cannot be stopped here. Cannot be stopped. So then we get the idagamaha and anubandha lopaha. Then after that we have to now do the guna adeshaha. Guna adeshaha by savradhatukarnakayoho. And then after that, echayavayavaha, we form shamayishyate. Now notice one thing. In this case, we cannot apply 6451 niraniti because the idagama was done here by 7 to 35. 7 to 35 is outside the adhikara vasiddhavatrabhat. So this idagama will be seen clearly by 6451. So 6451, we see the pratyaya being isya. It cannot apply. Because 6451 requires anidada vardhake pare nirlopasya. So this idagama which is done by 7 to 35 will be seen clearly by 6451. The idagama done by 6462 is not seen by 6451. This interesting example that we have how you can apply this adhikara of asiddhavatrabhat. So and how the idagama which we normally think of being done by 7 to 35 is in this chinvat bhava pakshe being done by 6462. So it's an interesting example of how this 8 comes from a different route in chinvat bhava pakshe, and therefore it becomes asiddha in the eyes of 6451. But when chinvat bhava pakshe, when chinvat is not there, then we go the usual steps. Idagama by 7 to 35. That is of course seen by 6451. There's no lopa of the niche. Then we just do the guna adesha and then echayavayavaha shamishyate. So we get 3 forms. Shamishyate, shamishyate, and shamayishyate. So these 2 are chinvat bhava pakshe. Shamishyate and shamishyate. While shamayishyate is chinvat abhava pakshe. Because that time niche will not take lopaha. Okay. So that is some practice. Again, these sutras are not very commonly used. In Gita, this is not there. In Bhagavad Gita, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have this. So yeah, that's why these forms are not very commonly used. But it's interesting anyway how in the passive some interesting things happen. So that's why we took it here. But otherwise, you probably not see this form that often. The chinvat bhava, you'll not see that often being used. Okay, let's look at one more operation here, which comes with the chin. Is ato yuk chin krutoho. This sutram is used a lot. I mean, not a lot, quite often, because it's used not only for chin, but any pratyaya which is krut pratyaya, which has a tavarga, chavarga, panchama as an it. So this sutram has other applications. So this particular sutram is used. Ato yuk chin krutoho Chinvat bhava is not used that much, but this particular sutram has other applications, so it is used in different places. So we're going to have to take it sometime anyway. We can take it now itself because we are looking at the chinvat. So this sutram says adantanam, because this is in 7333. 7333, we looked at that. We have looked at 7336 in detail. Arti, ri, vli, ri, knu, ik, shmai, yatam, pungno. We looked at 7332. Anasto, chinnaloho. See the anuvritti of this from achod niti from 7 to 15 comes all the way down. Comes all the way down to 7.3. So this sutram ato yukchun kritoho says that ataha. So it says adantanam is in the angasya adhikaraha. So adantamangam if you have yuk agamaha, yugagamaha syat, chini and niti kriticha. So if you have an adantamangam, it takes a yuk agamaha when followed by the pratyaya chin or a krit pratyaya which is niti, which is nit. Right now we think of a chin pratyaya because we chinvat bhava we're talking about right now, but this will also apply when the pratyaya is a krit pratyaya, which is either has the tavarga panchama nakara as a nit or chavarga panchama nyakara as a nit. So an angam ending in an akaraha takes the augment yuk when followed by the affix nit or a krit pratyaya, which is either nit or nit. Let's look at an example now. Just a simple dhatu, dudai dane, dadati, is to give, right? So we have a dhatu which is adantaha. Let's look at the case where the pratyaya rit is being used in karmani atva bhave, pratham purusha ekavachanam, and when we add da plus rit, go to usual steps, anubandha lopaha, then bring the pratyaya ta, because of bhava karmanoho, so tangana atmane padam, then tita atmane padanam tere, then syata asil lutoho, we have that. Now we do have a dhatu ending in a akaraha. Now even before we go there, we can apply now 6462 because we do have a dhatu ending in a ach. The ach is the dhatu patha itself. So that ach is definitely in upadesha and dhatu patha itself. We do have the pratyaya sya following. It's used in bhava karmanoho. So therefore we can get chinvat bhava optionally. When chinvat bhava comes, then we can apply 7333 because ato yuk chin krutoho. We have a dhatu ending in a akaraha followed by pratyaya which has now become chinvat optionally. And remember, when chinvat bhava comes, the ad-agama comes necessarily. So we get, id-agama comes necessarily, id-agama. So it comes with chinvat bhava. So we get it sya, and then we get a yuk agama back here because now this pratyaya it sya is chinvat. The angam ends in the akaraha. You get the yuk agama and of course adyantau takitau. The yuk joins at the end of the angam da. Then anubandha lopaha, halantyam tasya lopaha, the ukara is ucharanarthaha. Then we get daishyate by the usual adesha pratyaya yoho. So, and when we don't apply chinvat bhavaha, we get a simple form dasyate because da is anit dhatu, so dasyate. We get two forms, daishyate and dasyate. So one more time, dhatu is da. And when we apply, when we look at the case of bhave atva karmani, pratham purusha ekvachanam in the rit lakaraha, we go to the first few steps and we get da syate. We do have a dhatu ending in a ach. The ach is the akara which is in the upadesha and the dhatu part itself. And we have pratyaya sya following, and that is used in the passive here. So we get chinvat bhavaha optionally. When chinvat bhava comes, the id-agama has to come. Even though dhatu da is anit, doesn't matter. Chinvat bhava pakshe nityam it. So this sutram itself does the id-agama. So then we get it sya, and now because it sya, that isya pratyaya is chinvat, and we have an angam ending in akara, we get the yuk agamaha by ato yuk chinkrutoho. And now we can, and of course adyanta takita which goes at the end, anubandha lopaha, then adesha pratyaya yoho shatvam we get Daishyate. Daishyate. When there's no Chinvat Bhava, because Chinvat Bhava is optional, then we just add, there's nothing special, it just becomes that. We basically stop at this step. We will stop at this step, Dasyate. There'll be, because that time 7 to 35 will stop by 7 to 10. Because Da is Anit Dhatu. So Chinvat Bhava got Dida Agama necessarily, but Chinvat Abhava Pakshe in Nishedha Syat. Because of Ekach Upadasi Nudatta. So anyway, these are some special things which I just want to mention in the passive of Rit. We have this interesting sutram. This is not only for Rit, this applies also when the Pratyaya Tas follows, or Sich we're going to see later, or when the Pratyaya is a Siyuta Agamaha. Then in the passive, these dhatus which are Ajanta Dhatavaha, when the Aj should be Upadeshe, or the dhatu Han, Graha or Drish, they become optionally, these Pratyas become Chinvat. You get the Nit and you get the Ida Agamaha in Chinvat Bhava Pakshe. So when Chinvat Bhava is there, the It has to be there. Okay, now that concludes this discussion of Rit Lakaraha. Again, we cannot take every sutram in the class, but we've done enough now to get with this much you can at least, I think, decipher 90% of the Rit forms. It's a very common Lakaraha. And we'll take more and more examples in the daily examples. We'll take more examples and then, move along. Now, I just want to come look at the table here quickly. Is this, once you get the form like Bhavishyate or Bhavishyate, then the remaining forms are just like this, So we'll get Bhavishyate, Bhavishyate, Bhavishyante, Bhavishyase, and so on and so forth. So once the Angam you have Bhavishyate, Bhavishyate, then Bhavishyate, Bhavishyate. So once you get the Angakaryam, then the good news is that we can just crank out this form. Just instead of Lapsya, you put Bhavishya or Bhavishya. You finish the form. But remember one thing, as I said to you, Bhave has to be third person singular, because Bhave signifies an action. In Karmani, of course, you'll have all these forms, Karmani. But Bhave only, there'll be only this third person singular only. So even though here we look at only single forms, but once you get one form, you know the Angakaryam. Then rest of it is just a simple, So you get Bhavishyate, Bhavishyate, Bhavishyante, Bhavishyase, Bhavishyate, Bhavishyadve, Bhavishye, Bhavishyamahe, Bhavishyamahe, Bhavishyamahe. And same thing here in two forms. So, okay, next topic, Anantara Vishayaha. So, is Lingashishi. Okay, let's go back for 1 second. And, when we studied the Lot Lakaraha, looked at the Sutram 33173, which is Ashishi Ling Lotau. So Ashishi. So 633173, we had Ashishi Ling Lotau. So Ashishi, Ashis, particularly Ashis. Ashis means like a blessing or a good wishes or a blessing. So in that time when we looked at the Sutram Tuyo Statang Ashishi Natrasyam. So when there was an Ashir Lot which is used Ashishi, sense of a benediction. And that time, so Tuyo Statang Ashishi Natrasyam, so that sutram which we saw. So we had this special form. So Tuyos 7135, the tu and he to the Tatanga Desha Natrasyam. We say, for example, Chiranjeevi Bhuyat, so Bhavatat, so be long lived, So may you be long lived, sir. So Chiranjeevi, so Chiram, or you can say Chiranjeevatat Bhavan, or Chiranjeevatat Tvam. So means that the speaker blesses, or speaker gives a good wish that whoever is talking to may be long lived. So Chiram Jeevatat. So that Tatang was a special thing that we got. When the lot is used Ashishi, but we only got that for the tu and the he. Remaining forms, whether it is Ashishi or not Ashishi, the forms are the same. So one more time, we have already seen this. We have seen the lot being used Ashishi, and the only special form that it got was that in the tu pratyaya and he pratyaya. Basically, the pratham purusha ekvachanam, Madhupurusha ekvachanam, they took the Tatanga Desha. So you get form like Bhavatat, Jeevatat, and so on like that. Remaining forms are all the same. So lot, whether it is used Ashishi, you cannot tell. From the context you can tell. The Tatang clearly signifies it's Ashishi. But if tatang is not there, even tatang is also anyatrasyam. Tatang is also anyatrasyam. So besides the tatang, there was no way to tell whether that lot is used ashishi or not. But now we're going to be using the pratyaya ling ashishi, because so this we already done. This one we already done. Lot lakara we already saw when used ashishi. But today we'll start this thing about ling ashir ling, and that takes different forms in everywhere now because of a special. We'll see why. We'll see today why that happens. So in lot only tatang was the only special thing which came in ashishi, but in ling we're going to have a completely different route to take than vidiling. Vidiling we have studied, but then because by the sutram this is Vidhi nimantrana mantrana dhishta samprashna prarthaneshu ling. Vidhi nimantrana mantrana dhishta samprashna prarthaneshu ling. That we have in all these various meanings of like request, so so this we have used this one with the order request kind of thing. So but now we are looking at ashishi ling lotau. So now what's the big deal if ling is used ashishi? Because then there come some special rules which make the forms different from the vidiling. So let's see what those are. So first of all, the important thing comes this linga ashishi. Linga ashishi is when a ling, the ling pratyaya is used ashishi, sense of benediction, as a blessing or a good wish. Then what happens is that look at the number 34116. We already studied 34115 in great detail. In fact, we have studied 34113 ting shit sarvadhatukam. It should be second nature for you by now. Then ardhadhatukam sheshaha. Then litcha. Then linga shishi. You see, so these three things shit sarvadhatukam, which we already know, pratyaya ting and pratyaya which is tala with shakaras in it gets the sanya of sarvadhatukam. Then this all is dhatu iti vihitaha. A pratyaya prescribed after dhatu. Then ardhatukam sheshaha. If the pratyaya is not a ting pratyaya, does not have tala with shakaras in it, is prescribed after dhatu, then it becomes gets sanya of ardhatukam. Then litcha, the tibadayaha, the ting pratyaya which comes in place of lit, it would have normally had a sanya of sarvadhatukam by ting shit sarvadhatukam. But litcha says that a tip, ting, tip, tajji, etc., the ting pratyaya which comes in place of lit gets a sanya of ardhadhatukam in spite of 34113. And then linga ashishi, you can now expect the same thing here, is that the tibadayaha, the ting pratyaya, mitiptaji, etc., when they come in place of ling which is used ashishi, ashishi means the sense of ashirvada as a blessing or a good wish, then the tibadayaha, they get sanya of ardhadhatukam. In spite of ting shit sarvadhatukam, if that ting pratyaya is coming in place of ling which is used ashishi, then it gets a sanya of ardhadhatukam. So now what happens with that then? Well, there are some very important things which happen, as you can expect now. First of all, that it stops kartari shap, etc. That's number one. Number one, it stops kartari shap, etc. Because kartari shap, etc. What would be etc. means the shap, the shan, the shnu, all the shap and the shapavadaha, and shap itself, they're all stopped. Because this entire section is cut out. But this only is sarvadhatuke. So basically now the big difference between vidiling and ashiling is that the shabadaya na bhavanti. There'll be no shap. Second thing is that, so this is number one, very important, because linga shishi made the pratyaya ting, the tip, the ji, etc. get the sanya of ardhadhatukam when ling is used ashishi. And then shap cannot come. Shap and its apavadas cannot come. Second thing is that now by 7279, if you remember, by 7279, we have used to use linga salopanantasya ato yeyaha. See, this is all for the Sarvadhatuka Linga. So that will not come now. So we cannot use Linga Salopanantasya Ratoye Yadi. We cannot use that because it's only Sarvadhatuke. So now the Sakar Lopa will not happen anymore. That's number 2. So first thing what? The Shap and its Apavadas are stopped. Second thing is that because the Shap is only Sarvadhatuke. Second thing is that the Salopa is stopped now. Because this is also only Sarvadhatuke. So when the Pratyaya Sanya of Sarvadhatukam. And the third thing is that now we have to think about the Idagamaha. Because Ardhadhatuka Syed Valadehe. Now, Idagamaha only comes the Pratyaya is Valadi. Now, in the Ling, what happens is, as we already know, that we get the Agamaha Yasut or Siyut. Yasut or Siyut. Because of what? Because of 34102, which is Linga Siyut, and then Yasut Prasnipadeshu Dhatu Nicha. Now, when the Yasut Agama comes, the Yakara is not a Val letter. So in Parasmapadam, even though the Pratyaya will now have the Sanya of Ardhadhatu there is no chance for a Idagamaha. The Pratyaya is not Valadi. But when the Siyut Agama comes in Atmanipadam, now we have to think about the Idagamaha. Because now we have Pratyaya which is Sakaradi, which is Valadi. Sakara is a Val letter. So Yakara is the only consonant which is not a Val. So when the Pratyaya is Yakaradi, when the Yasut Agama comes, then in Parasmapadam, then there is no chance for Idagama. So it doesn't matter whether the Sanya is Ardhatukam or not. But when Siyut comes in Atmanipadam, now we have to think about the Idagamaha. So there are 3 operations. So one more time. We start with the Lingashishi. Is when the Pratyaya Ling is used in Ashirvad Arthe, the sense of benediction as a blessing or a good wish on the part of the speaker. Then the Ting Pratyaya, which substitutes the Lakara, will now get Sanya of Ardhadhatukam in spite of Ting Shisaratukam. When that happens, the Shabadaya cannot come. Shab, etc. cannot come. That's number 1. Number 2 is that the Linga Salopanantasya Natoye, which is 7-279, they cannot come. Those are also only when the Sanya, for the Sarvadhatuka Linga, not for this one. The third thing is that Idagama now has to be checked. Not in Parasmapadam, because that time we have Yasut. But in Atmanipadam, when your Siyut Agama comes, we have to check Idagama now. Okay. Now, having said all of this, let me tell you that the Ling Ashishi is not used very commonly. It is not very uncommon. It is not used. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, I think there's only like 1 or 2, I think mainly only one place I can think of is the Ashir Ling in Bhagavad Gita, I think is used only in one place I can think of right now, only in one place, which is this one. Nahi prapashyami mama apanudyat. Nahi prapashyami mama apanudyat yat chokam uchchosham indriyanam. Avapya bhuma vasapatnam ruddham rajyam saranam vichadipatyam. Arjuna says that I don't see what I wish would remove my sorrow, and so on, This is finally when he surrenders to Shri Krishna and he says, So this is the one place in Gita where we see Ashir Ling. So Ashir Ling is much, much less common than Vidhi Ling. Okay, let me tell you a shortcut right now. Remember this one thing about Ashir Ling. If you see a Siyut Agamaha or a Yasut Agamaha, like in Apanudyat, for example, then, and if it is not a Vidhiling usage, it must be Ashir Ling. One more time. If you see if there is a Yasut Agamaha in Parasnipadam, of course, and or a Siyut Agamaha in Atmanipadam, and the form is not that of Vidhiling, it must be Ashirling. Because Ashirling has some complicated rules, which we will study in the class. But if you want to keep a simple shortcut for yourself, is that just check if there is a Yasut Agamaha or a Siyut Agamaha. And of course, in this case, the Sakara will not take Lopaha, because 7 to 79 will not apply. So Yasut or Siyut is there, and the form is different from Vidiling. Because let's take this example, Apanudyat. Dhatu Nuda is a Tudadikanaha. What's the Vidiling form? Should be Apanudet. Apanude like Bhavet. Apanudet. Atoyayaha would have come. So that form is well known to us. Apanudet. The fact that Yasut is there and the form is different from Nudet, which means this must be Ashirling. So remember this one simple thing, one last time. The way to spot a Ashirling usage is to spot the Yasut Agamaha, of course in Prasnapadam, Siyut Agamaha in Atmanipadam, and then check the Vidhiling form, which is well known to us. Why is it well known to us, by the way? Because in Vidhiling, the Angakaryam is well known to us. Because Shap or Chapavadas will come. For example, take the form Bhuyat. Take the form Bhuyat. In the form, this Bhuyat has to be Ashirling, because the Bhu did not become Bhava. If the Shap would have come, if it had done the Gunadesha, Echo Yavaya would have become Bhava, would have become Bhavet. The fact that Bhu has not become Bhava and Yasut is there, this must be Ashirling. Must be Ashirling. So this is the easiest thing about Ashirling, is that learn to spot the Siyut or Yasut. Ashirling is not very commonly used. So you may not want to spend all the time looking up all the detailed rules. Just learn to spot the Siyut or Yasut, and the Vidhiling form is well known, because Angakaryam is well known, and like Bhu becomes Bhava. Like for example, take a form like Kriyat. Now Kriyat has to be Ashirling, because you know the form Kuryat. The Gana Vyakaranam U did not come over there. So that Kriyat must be Ashirling. Cannot be. Like Krishishta. The Krishishta. Again the same thing, should become Kurvita. So Siyut is there. It is different from Vidhiling. It must be Ashirling. So that's the one important thing for today, please. Is spot the Siyut in Atmanipadam, Yasut in Parasnapadam. Check the Vidhiling form. And then, which should be easy for you, you can check the Angakaryam. Check the Angakaryam. Gana Vikarana is there or not? Of course, this shortcut will not work like in all the cases. But in 90% of the cases, you can quickly decide it's Ashirling. Then once you know the Dhatu, like we see a form like Bhuyat, you can guess Dhatu must be Bhu only. So if you check a form like Kriyat, it might be a little bit difficult for you, but you can at least make sure it's Ashirling and then go from there. Okay, so but since this is a Vyakaranam class, we'll go through details. Let's take the example now. Let's take a simple example. Let's take the Dhatu Vacha Paribhashane to speak. So first of all, Linga Ashishi said, Ashishi Lingaha Ting. So Ting which came in place of Ling, which is used Ashishi. Ardhatu Sanyasyat. We just talked about that. Let's take an example of Vacha Paribhashane. Vivaksha, let's take Ashirling. Pratipurakaha, Pratham Purusha Ekvachanam. Now this is the Prasipadi Dhatu, so we do the Anubandha Lopaha, and then I use the Pratyaya is still Ling only. Only thing that we see the meaning of Ashishi, the meaning of a blessing, benediction, or a good wish. Then we get the Tipadeshaha, Anubandha Lopaha, then Itascha. Up to this point, no difference. Up to this point, there's no difference from Vidhiling. Okay, up to this point. Because Vidhiling, Ashirling, no matter the Pratyaya still Ling, it does have the Kavarika Panchama Nakara as an It. So we use Itascha. So Vach plus Ta. Now at this point, we would have had some differences now. Because what would have happened is that here now, because of 34116, Linga Ashishi, this Pratyaya Ta gets Sanya of Ardhadhatu come. Therefore, the Kartri Shap cannot come now. Shap cannot come. So directly now we bring the Pratyaya Yasut, of course, Yasut would have come regardless. So Yasut will come regardless whether you have Ashiling or Vidiling. You're going to get the Yasut. So Yasut definitely comes because 34103. Yasut prasipadeshu dato nicha. So Yasut comes. Now, Yasut, we bring in the Yasut, of course, Adyanto Takitau and Anubandha Lopaha. By Halantyam Tasya Lopaha, the Ukara Uchcharanarthaha. So we get Vachyasta. Now comes the second difference, is that here we cannot use 7279. Lingasya Lopanantasya cannot be used because that only applies for the Sarvadhatuka Linga, not for this one. So 7279 Lingasya Lopanantasya Anuvritti is coming of Sarvadhatuke. So that cannot be used here. So it's a second difference now. So we get Vachyasta. Now comes another important difference, which is this sutram Kidashishi. Kidashishi. Okay, let's go back and we know these two rules very well. 34102, Linga Siyut, and then 34103, Yasut Prasipadeshu Dato Nyecha. Now this Yasut, if it comes as an agamaha for the ling which is used Ashishi, it becomes Kit. Kidashishi, Kidashishi. Now what's the big deal? Because it was Nit anyway. It was Nit because we already had Yasut Prasipadeshu Dato Nitcha. Then what's the big deal? Because we can still use Kiniticha to do the Guna, Nisheda and all that. But then there are some operations which may require the Pratyaya to be Kit. So this Yasut which came from 34103 would not allow those operations. But now Kidashishi says that if that Yasut comes as an agamaha to the ling pratyaya which is used Ashishi, then that Yasut becomes Kit. Now what's the difference here now for us? The difference here is that okay, so Kidashishi says Ashishi lingo Yasut Kit. So a Yasut agamaha which comes to a ling pratyaya which is used in the sense of Ashishi, benediction, it becomes a Kit. This augment Yasut, which is prescribed by 34103, Yasut Prasipadeshu Dato Nitya, shall be considered as a Kit if, means having kakara as a Kit means of course having kakara as an it, when it joins a ling affix used in Ashishi, in benediction. So now when you continue the same example, here we got Vach plus Yasta. Now this Yasut is now a Kit pratyaya because of Kidashishi. Kidashishi. So therefore we can now do Samprasaranam because of Vachi Swapi Yajajinam Kiti. So now you understand why that Kidashishi is important, because we could not do the Samprasaranam because that sutram Vachi Swapi Yajadinam Kiti requires a Kit pratyaya to follow. Then only Samprasaranam takes place for Dhatu Vach, Swap and the Yajad, which is the last 9 Dhatu in the Vadigadaha. So Vachi Swapi Yajadinam Kiti, we need to apply that here. To do that, we need pratyaya to be Kit. By 34103, the Yasut was a Nit, but now 34104 says Kidashishi. So because this we are looking at Ashirling here, so this pratyaya Yasut is a Kit. The Yasut is an Agamaha. But when the Yasut is a Kit, of course it imparts the Kitness to the pratyaya. Remember one thing, Yadagamas tad guni bhutaha tad grahanena grihyante. So Agama comes and joins the pratyaya. It becomes a part and parcel of the pratyaya. Yadagamas tad guni bhutaha tad grahanena grihyante. So they go along with the pratyaya now. They become a integral part of the pratyaya. So Yasut was made a Kit, of course it is going to impart the Kitness to the pratyaya now. So the pratyaya Yasta is a Kit pratyaya now. So now because of that we can use Vachi Swapi Yajadinam Kiti. And of course Igyana Samprasaranam, so we get the Ukara Adesha in place of the Vakaraha. And then of course we do Samprasaranach. These are all old rules for us. And then we get, now what happens? We get Uchyasta. After Samprasaranam, after doing the Samprasaranach, Purupariyo Ekadeshaha is the Pururupam. Now we get Uchyasta. Now comes the Sandhi rule which we have learned. which is skos sanyogadyorante cha. Skos sanyogadyorante cha. If we have a sakara or kakara, which is sanyogadi, the beginning of a conjunct, and then skos sanyogadyorante cha, and then that conjunct, the sanyoga is followed by jali athva padante, 8 through 29. Skos sanyogadyorante cha. Then the sakara or kakara takes lopaha. See, normally by sanyogantasya lopaha, the antya takara would take lopa here. But skos sanyogadyorante cha says if that sanyoga has the sakara or kakara as the first member, then that sakara or kakara takes lopaha. The ending fellow stays. So one more time here, uchyast of course has the sanya of pado sanya by supting antam padam. Normally by sanyogantasya lopaha, the takara would take lopaha. But skos sanyogadyorante cha tells us that if we have a sanyoga beginning with a sakara or takaraha, sakara or kakaraha, skoho, sakara or kakaraha, then that sakara or kakara will take lopaha, not the ending member. Jali padante, in this case padante. So by skoho sanyogadyorante cha, the sakara takes lopaha, the takara stays behind. So we get uchyat. Of course, this is an old sandhi rule, uchyat. So one more time what happened here was sarvadhatu vacha. We used ling ashishi. We had this common steps up to vach ta by tascha. We also got the yasut agamaha as usual. Usual means the same steps as in vidhilinga. So we got yasut prasipradeshu dhatu nicha. But now this pratyata, which became yasta, gets sanya of ardhadhatukam. So we don't have to worry about kartari shap, etc. Not only that, because of that sanya of ardhadhatukam, we cannot apply lingasya lopanantasya. Okay. Then what happened was that we saw sutram kidashishi. The yasut, when it comes as an agamaha to a ling pratyaya, which is used ashishi, that becomes kit. And because of yadagama stadguni bhutaha tadgrahanena griyante, the agamaha becomes an integral part of the pratyaya. The pratyaya now becomes the entire thing becomes a kit. It has a kit element to it, and therefore we can do samprasaranam by vachi swapi yajadinam kiti. And then the vakara takes the ukara desha by igyana samprasaranam. Then we get samprasaranacha purupariho ekadesha, the pururupam, and then comes skos sanyo skoho sanyogadyorantecha. Means it is followed by a jal letter or padante. Then we get the sanyoga which begins with the sakara or kakaraha takes the sakara or kakara takes lopaha. The ending fellow remains unchanged. So sakara takes lopaha by 8 to 29. We get the form uchyat. Here all these sandhi rules we have to practice, because we have seen these many times. So 8 to 29 skoho sanyogadyorante cha. It says that padante jali chapare yah sanyogaha tad adyoho sakara kakarayo lopasyat, which we just used. Okay. So let's look at some other operations when this ling pratyaya which is used ashishi. Look at second example. Let's look at the form kriyat. Okay, famous dhatu dukring karane. Let's look at ashi ling pratyaprayoga. Again, pratham purusha ekavachanam. Usual steps we follow: kru plus ling anubandha lopaha pratyatip kalantyam itascha. Then yasut comes. Then anubandha lopa. Up to this point, nothing special. All the same steps as in vidhiling, all the same steps as we did in the recent example. So we have kru yast. Kru yast. Of course, the ukara and yast uchcharanartham. Now, same thing as before, this yast has sanya of ardhadhatukam by 34116 linga shishi. So therefore, we will not get the pratyaya uhu. Pratyaya will not come. Katanadikran bhya uhu. Apavada for shap, that's only sarvadhatuke. That's the main thing here, is the pratyaya u will not come. So now the anga karyam will be different from that what we had in vidhilinga. Katanadikran bhya uhu cannot come because that's only sarvadhatuke. Secondly, we cannot use linga salopanantasya because that's only sarvadhatuka linga. So none of those can be used. But now we can use our sutram ring shag ling shu. Remember our old friend ring shag ling shu? Ring shag ling shu. Ring shag ling shu. See, now this is, we have seen all these rules before. At that time we couldn't appreciate all the parts of it, but now we can take them, because see, at that time we had not studied Ashi Ling. So when we looked at the sutram, look at the number 67428, we use this in the passive. We also use this in the Tudadi Ganaha, when the Pratyaya Sha, like Muru becomes Mriyate, you know, in the passive, Kru becomes Kriyate, and so on. So Ring Shag Ling Shu says, Ye, she, yaki, and yada vardhatuke lingi cha ritaha. Ring adesha syat. So she is the gana vikarana of the tudadi ganaha, tudadi vyashaha. Yaki is sarvadhatuke yak. And then yadav ardhatuke lingi. This is what we have now. Vyakaradi. Now how come this sutram never came in the Vidhiling, by the way? How come this? Because Yasut we had there also. Yasut we even had there also in Vidhiling. Because in Vidhiling, the Gana Vikarana would come in between. You understand? Because in Vidhiling, the Vidhiling means the Ting Pratyaya would have Sanya of Sarvatakam by Ting Shis Sarvatakam. And then the Gana Vikarana Shap or whatever Shan or Sha, or in this case U, Tanadikram via Uhu, would come in between. So that Vidhiling Pratyaya would not follow the Rikarantam Angam directly. There would be a Gana Vikarana in between. So at that time we did not have that. So but now we are having this thing about, you know, Ye she yaki and Yadav ardhatuke lingi. Ruto ring adeshasya. So 7428. This only applies Yadav ardhatuke lingi. Actually, one more thing is there, because this says akrit sarvadhatakayoho. Akrit sarvadhatakayoho. So there itself we had a problem, because the Vidhiling Pratyaya, that tip, not Vidhiling itself, but the tip Tajji, which comes in place of Vidhiling, they have Sanya of Sarvadhatukam by Tingshi Sarvadhatukam because of Linga Ashishi. Linga Ashishi, now this Pratyaya, which came in place of the Ling, has Sanya of, because we used talking about Ashishi, we have the Sanya of Ardhatukam. So therefore, because here, the fact that the Ling, in fact, we don't have to even think about the interception of Shap, etc. This clearly says Anuvritti is coming down here. Akrut Sarvadhatukayoho. So Sarvadhatuka is already excluded from this sutram. So Ling here has to be this Ashi Ling only, because of Akrut Sarvadhatukayoho. It cannot be a Sarvadhatuka Pratyaya. The Anuvritti of this Akrut Sarvadhatukayoho goes down to here to 29. So 28, 29, I mean all these rules, they only apply Akrut Sarvadhatukayoho. So Vidhiling Pratyaya, the tip Tajji, the Ting Pratyaya which came in place of Ling in the sense of Vidyarthe Ling, that will have Sanya of Sarvatakam by Ting Shi Sarvatakam. But now by Linga Ashishi, that Pratyaya in this case tip has Sanya of Ardhatakam. And then only we can think of applying 7428, because this has Anuvritti of Asarvadhatuke. So even so we don't have to, so this is almost a direct implication of that. So what I said earlier about the Gana Vikarana intervening, that doesn't really matter, because the sutram doesn't apply at all when the Pratyaya is Sanya Sarvatakam. So this Ring Shag Ling Shu says She Yaki, then Yadav Ardhatuke Lingi Cha Ruto Ringa Adeshasyat. Sutram which you have studied before, we are now applying different context. This was said to you many times. There may be a new sutram. We cannot appreciate all the parts of it immediately, but we can keep it pending. See, because so far we have done only the she and the yaki, like a form like mriyate, adriyate. Then yaki, of course, like kriyate, briyate, etc., driyate. But this we could not do so far, because we did not have a ling pratyaya, sanya paradhakam. But now we have it, because of linga ashishi. 34116. So Rutoha, Rudantasya Angasya, Ringadeshaha. Of course, Ringadeshaha, we have the ending Ngakara as an it, so therefore we can use Nitya. Nitya Sutram is Nit Adeshaha Anekalapi. alontasya sthani bhavati. Anytime you are thinking about any substitution, any adesha, always look at this sutra chatushtayam, sutra chatushtayam, which is alontasya, is the any adesha only comes in place of the ending letter. Nicha, adesha which is nit, no matter what else it might have, it always comes in place of the ending letter only. Then adef prasya and anekachi sarvasya. The ring adesha, anekal adesha. When you see anekal, ekal, eka, chalantyam, majantyam, all that, you have to always remove these letters first. The ring adesha, the ending ngakar is an it by halantyam. So anubandha lope sati, we get repha ikaraha. So it's an anekal adesha. So normally by 155, anekachi sarvasya, it would replace the entire angam would have gone. Of course, anishtam sya, we don't want that. So that's why Panini puts the ending nakar as an it, so that Nitya 1153 will force the ring adesha to take the place of only the ending rikara, not the entire angam. So we are applying Nitya, and then what we get here is that, so we had up to this point we had kri yast, we have to this point. Now we get the ring adesha because the pratyaya following is yakaradi. It's a ling pratyaya. It has sanya of ardhatukam because of linga shishi. So therefore we can now get the ring adesha in place of the rakara of the angam because of nitya ka ring yast anubandha lopa bhalantyam. We get the form kriyast. And same thing, skoh sanyogadyo rantecha. This sakara is sanyogadi, and the sanyoga is padantaha because it's nothing because of suttingantam padam. So sakara takes lopaha, the takara stays as it is. So this is apavada for sanyogantasya lopa 8 to 23. It's apavada 8 to 29. One more thing is that we in the Tripadi section we can only apply rules successively because of the asiddhatvam, right? Asiddhatvam. So now when we talk about this ko sanyogadyo rantecha, then how can we bypass sanyogantasya lopaha then? Because when we have the form kriyasta, then sanyogantasya lopa should get the first chance, shouldn't it? Because that's a purvavarti sutram in the Tripadi section. But apavadas can be anywhere, because the simple logic is that if you don't give the apavada a chance, it will never apply. So apavadas, no matter whether siddha, asiddha, apavadanam asiddhattam nasti. So apavada vishaye. When we talk about apavadas, there is no question of siddham asiddham, because otherwise the apavada will be useless. It will have no chance to apply anywhere. So the sutram, that part will become useless. So even though this koha sanyogadyo is a paravarti sutram, is a later rule in the Tripadi section. So therefore, we should apply 8 to 23. But this is apavada partially. It's a because this 8 to 29 applies jali and padante both. This one only applies padante. But in the padanta case, this 8 to 29 skoha sanyogadyo rantecha is apavada for sanyogantasya lopa in the padanta situation. The padanta situation is an apavada, so we have to give because Pani says antecha. This skoha sanyogadyo antecha. This antecha will be useless if we don't give 8 to 29 a chance right now. When kriyast is coming, then this antecha will be useless. Then it will always be overruled by this one. I mean, always be bumped out by this one. So even though 8 to 29 is a later rule in Tripadi, it is technically, you have to apply the earlier rule first. But this antecha Panini specifically says that if we have a sakara or kakara which is a sanyoga adi, and the sanyoga is padante, then the sakara or kakara should take lopaha, not the ending letter. So that will have no meaning if we constantly, apply only sanyogantasya lopaha. So in spite of the fact that 8 to 29 comes later in Tripadi section, it applies padante when the sakara kakara is sanyogadi, because it's an apavada in that case for the sanyogantasya lopaha. So sakara takes lopaha by 8 to 29, with the form kriyat. Kriyat. Okay, time is running out. Let's look at maybe one or two rows. Let's look at now this interesting sutram. Let's look at the same dhatu, dhatu kru, but in atmanipadam. Now dhatu kru has the chavarka panchama nyakara as an it. Nyakara as an it. So because of suritagnyataha kartravipraya kriyapali, it's ubhaypadi basically. It becomes ubhaypadi. Ubhaypadi by 1372. Suritagnyataha kartravipraya kriyapali, it becomes ubhaypadi. So therefore we just saw the form in parasaipadam. Let's look at the form in atmanipadam now. In atmanipadam, what happens is that we again follow the same steps as in the beginning. We get kru plus ling used in the sense of ashishi by ashishi ling lotau. Then anubandha lopaha, in this case it's atmanipadam, so we have to use the pratyata. Again, because of this dhatu has the chavarga pancham as an it, therefore it's ubhaypadi by 7372. Suritagnyataha kartavipraya kriyapale. And so now the same thing here, because the pratyata gets a sanya of ardhadhatukam. So we cannot apply the gana vikaranaha, u will not come, uhu will not come, u will not come, because that's only sarvadhatuke. Tanadikrim we have uhu, cannot come here. Then we begin the agama siyut now, because siyut is the default, because linga siyut. The yasut only comes as an apavadaha in atmanipadam. In parasipadam, excuse me. Yasut comes only in parasipadam because linga siyut is the default. Then comes yasut parasipadeshu dhatu nicha. So siyut remains in atmanipadam. In parasipadam yasut comes. We already see that in the vidilinga, of course, nothing new. So here siyut by linga siyut, because this is not parasipadam. So anubandha lopaha, the ukara uchanartha, then halan. And now again the same thing here is that this siyata has sanya of ardhadhatukam. So we cannot use 7 to 79. Linga sopanantasya only applies for sarvadhatuka linga. So now you see how we're getting different forms for these two main reasons. Is the gana vikarana will not come, and the sakar lopa will not come. These are the two main reasons, the two main differences between ashiling, and they stem from the fact of linga ashishi, So we cannot do sakar lopa here. Okay. So now comes the interesting sutram, suttitoho. Suttitoho. Look at the number 34107. We just used linga siyut. Then suttito is a very simple sutram. It says that linga tatoho means that the takara or thakara of linga, that the single letter, the letter takara, the ta letter or the tha letter, it takes a sut agamaha. Very simple sutram. A takara or thakara belonging to a linga affix takes the argument sut. So what happens now is that we have the situation of kru siya sut. Now what happens is that we have kru siya ta, that takara of the pratyaya siyata takes the sut agamaha. As of course, as usual, adyantau takitau, anubandha lopaha, the ukara uchanarthaha. So only sakara remains. We get kru siyasta. Now what happens is that because of lopo vyor vali, the yakara goes away. Lopo vyor vali. Lopo vyor is only sandhi operation. Means you have lopo vyor. So vali. So if you have a vakara or yakara followed by a val letter, lopo vyor vali. Lopo vyor vali. Then that vakara, this is nothing to do with ashili or anything like that. It's a simple sandhi rule which you have used many times. Vyoho. So vakara yakara yoho lopasyat vali parataha. So we have a yakara of siyut here followed by the sakara. So it's a val letter. So we get siyista. Now what happens is that we have to think about, first thing is, what about the idagamaha? Because remember, by linga shishi, now this siyista has sanya of ardhadhatukam. So we have to deal with ardhatuka syed valadehe. But of course, its dhatu is anudattupadeshaha. Why? Because in the ajanta dhatu, that's why we devoted one whole class to the sutram. We spent one whole class almost on this sutram, which was the ekach upadeshanu datta. It says udrudantaihi yauti rukshno shing snu nu kshu shvi ding shribhe vring vring bhyancha vinaikachu adanteshu nihataha smutaha. So in the adanta dhatavaha, which are ekach, only these are udatta upadesha. Those ending in long u, long ru, and then all is listed here. So dhatu kru is not in that list. So dhatu kru different karane is anudatta upadesha. So therefore 7 to 10 ekach upadesha anudatta. We'll stop 7 to 30. We still have to check that. So that's the first thing we have to check. Second thing is that now how about the gunadesha? But sarvadhatika ardhatika yoho, because this linga shishi is sanya of ardhatukam. So we cannot try to invoke the sarvadhatukam apit 1 to 4 because that's only sarvadhatukam apit 1 to 4. This is sanya of ardhatukam. So now nothing can stop really. From the rules we know so far, we cannot stop sarvadhatika ardhaka yoho. But now comes a special rule which says ushcha. Ushcha. It says that, look at the number by the way, 1 to 12. This is our favorite section because as I told you in 1.2, the first I think is 26 rules which Panini talks about making a pratyaya a nit or a kit. And anuvritti of kit starts from asanyoga lit kit, which we have studied. So we have studied sarvadhatukam apit. We have studied asanyoga lit kit. So now it's not too surprising that we are looking at a sutram here. Ushcha. Ushcha means it is the uvarnat paro. So uhu is the panchami of ru. Ru. So ushcha, like kartru becomes kartuhu. Right? So this like a rukaranta. So the panchami of ru is uhu. Uhu. So ru varnat paro. Jhaladi ling sichau. Kitau staha tangi. One more time. Ru varnat parau. Because uhu is a panchami of ru. Ru varnat parau. So following a ru varnaha. Jhaladi ling sichau. Anuvritti is coming from here. We have ling sichau from the prior sutram. Atmanepadeshu from the prior sutram. Then we have jal coming from here. So jhaladi ling sichau. Kitau staha tangi, they get the kit, they regard as a kit. So if you have a pratyaya of ling or a sich pratyaya, which you have not studied yet, we study a little bit later in this month, next month, when we do the lung lakaraha. So a jhaladi, this is a dual case, this is a pratama dvivachanam. Ling sichau kitau staha tangi. So when using atmanepadam, the affix ling or sich is considered to be a kit if the following condition is satisfied. The affix ling or sich begins with a jal letter. A jal letter. Now what happens in Vidhiling by the way? In Vidhiling what happened was that when we had the yasut and siyut, of course the yasut is not a jal, yakara is not a jal letter at all. And in siyut we got linga salopanantasya. So at that time we never had this situation. We never had this situation of a Vidhiling. Not only that, we'll have a Gana Vikarana coming in between. So in Vidhiling, we never came to this part at all. Because that time, having a Jhaladi Pratyaya was not possible. Because we had Yasut, which doesn't begin with a Jal letter, and Siyut, Linga Salopanantasya, Sakara was gone. So and also the Gana Vikarana will come in between there also. So this situation is not satisfied in Vidhiling. But in Ashiling now, when you have a ruvarnantamangam, followed by jhaladi, ling pratyaya, also pratyaya sich we study, we will leave that for now. Pratyaya sich we not studied so far, we'll look at it later. That becomes a kit in Atmanepadam only. So when used in Atmanepadam, the affix ling or sich, which we'll see later, is considered to be a kit, having kakara as an it. If the following condition is satisfied, the affix ling or sich begins with a jal letter, and there is a ru varnaha prior to the ling or sich. So what do we have right now? We have kru sista. We stopped the gunadesha. We have to stop the gunadesha right now. We have to stop it right now. So what happens is that is pratyaya sista is jhaladi, is following an angam ending in the rukaraha, and So it becomes it becomes kit, and now we can use kiniticha to stop the sutram, the gunadesha by savradhatkaradhakayoho. So then, of course, once gunadesha is stopped, then we go to kru, we apply the adesha pratyayoho 2 times for this sakara of siyut and the sakara of the sut. Both take the murdanya shakara adesha, because prior to the siyut sakara we have the rukaraha, and prior to the sut sakara we have the ikaraha. Both are in letters. So we can apply adesha pratyayoho twice, becomes kru shishta, and finally stunashtuhu krushishta. Krushishta. Now the important thing is that pratyaya should be jaladi links, which means what? There should be no idagama. If an idagama comes, then we cannot use uscha, because the uscha requires the pratyaya to be jaladi ling or sitcha. So first thing we have to check the idagama, and in this case stop it by 7 to 10. Then only we can come and apply uscha, make the pratyaya kit, and then stop the gunadesha by 115 by kiniticha. So in this case we look at the dhatu kru in atmanepadam, and what happened is follow the usual steps. We got kru siyata, and then we got the sut agamaha, because we have takara of ling, so we can take the sut agamaha. For the takara only, remember 2 things: the siyut or yasut come to the entire pratyaha, while the sut by suttitoho it only comes for the takara letter respectively. So the sut agama is only an agama for the takara or takara, just for the letter, for a single letter, ta or tha. So there's no conflict between these two. Don't confuse these two, please. The siyut and yasut with the sut. The sut is coming to a different part. The sut only comes to takara or takara, while the yasut or siyut comes to the entire ling pratyaya. So we got the sut agama here, and then of course no gana vikarana uhu, because the sanya of ardhatukam by linga shishi, sanya of ardhatukam, and we cannot remove the sakara, because we cannot apply 7 to 79, because linga salopanantasya is only for the sarvadhatuka linga. So the sakara remains, and there is no gana vikarana, because this thing has, this pratyasiyata has a sanya of ardhatukam by linga shishi. And therefore we get the sutagamaha, then of course adyandu takitau, anubandha lopaha, and now check for the idagamaha. This dhatu kru is anudatta padesha. So we stop the idagamaha by 7 to 10, which is ekachupashinudattat. And once the idagama is stopped, now we have jaladi ling pratyaya, following an angam which is ending in a ru varna. Then what happens is that sista becomes kitta by ushcha sutra. Ruvarnat parau, jaladi ling sichau, kitaustaha tangi. It's an atmanipadam. So then we can stop the gunadesha by kiniticha. And finally we do the sandhi rules, adesha pratyayoho twice, and then shunashtuho. Now what about the sutagama all this time, by the way? Because we have been using the vidiling and ashiling, I mean today ashiling and parasyapadam. At that time we happily ignored the sutagama all this time. How is that? The answer is that in vidiling, remember, in vidiling we have linga salopanantasya. So sutagamaha, technically speaking, should have been done even in vidiling, because suttitoho doesn't say only for ashiling or anything like that, only the pratyas ardhatukam. It doesn't say that. But what happens is that it will not be tasya shravanam bhavati, tasya lopasyat, because the sutagamaha technically should be done in every time we have a takara or takaraha of a ling pratyaya. But we have ignored it so far, because in vidiling, even if we do the sutagamaha, it will take lopaha, the sakara will take lopaha by lingastalopanantasya. So in vidiling, the sutagamaha technically should be done there also. It will have no net effect. It will have no net effect because of lingasalopanantasya, the sakara will take lopaha again. So that is why in vidiling we completely ignored suttito 34107, even though technically speaking, it should be done there also, and then we should apply linga slopanantasya. Now, what about in parasyapadam? We just did the form here, like, bhuya, this uchyat and kriyat. What about there? What about the sutagama here? Because suttitoho, here also we have a takara, and we can, then why not sutagama here? And even same thing here in kriyat, we have kriyasta, because there also it will have no net effect, because of skos sanyogadyo rantecha will be applied twice. So there also the sut will take lopaha by skos sanyogadyo rantecha. So one more time, the suttitoho, which you are using today in the Atmanipadam, in Ashiling, should have been used all along from Vidiling onwards. Whenever we have a takara or takara in ling, we should technically apply the sut agamaha. But in Vidiling, because of 7 to 79, lingasalopanantasya, that sakara will take lopa anyway. So to keep it simple, we did not do sutagama there. In Vidiling, the sutagama should be done for a takara or takaraha, which will have no net effect because 7 to 79. Even in Ashirling, in Parasmepadam, when you bring in the yasut, there also it will have no net effect because of skos sanyogadyo rantecha. That sakara will take lopaha by skos sanyogadyo rantecha. So even though the suttito should be applied all along in Parasmepadam and in Atmanipadam, in Vidiling and in Ashirling, whenever we have a takara or takara in the pratyaya, it only gets heard in it only remains behind, it only survives, if you want, it only survives in the Ashirling, in Atmanipadam. Otherwise, in Vidiling, 7 to 79 removes it. And in Ashirling, Parasyapadam, 8 to 29, skos sanyogadrantecha removes it. So that is why, so far, we have not applied suttito, even though technically it should be applied everywhere. Then we have to do lopa there also. Time is running out. Let me just show you tables and we will stop now. Okay. Now the good news is that once we get the form kriyat, then the remaining is straightforward, because see, kriyas is common work. Kriyas. Again, we should not do it like that because the yasur is an agama for the pratyaha, so we should not be taking the agama out like that, but kriyas is common work. Kriyas. So we get kriyastam because of tasasting pam tam tam tamaha. Kriyasu by jerjus. This is the same rules as in Vidiling, the same rules. Kriyaha, only thing remember here is that we cannot use 7 to 79. We cannot use linga salopanantasya. So we get kriyastam, kriyasu by jerjus, kriyaha. Here also skos sanyogadyo rantecha. So the pratyasya itascha becomes kriyasa, and the prior sakara takes lopaha. We got kriyasa. The prior sakara takes lopaha by skos sanyogadyo rantecha. In kriyastam tasasmipam tam tam tamaha, kriyasta, kriyasam, again the amadeshaha, kriyasva, kriyasma. So once you get the angam, angakara means it's like bhuyas. When you get bhuyat, like uchyat. Uchyat, uchyastam, uchyasuhu, uchyaha, uchyastam, uchyasta, uchyasam, uchyasam, uchyasva, uchyasma. So once you get this angam, then everything just follows the usual rules. In Atmanipadam, when you get krishishta, the krishiya is common work, with the usual warning that the siyut belongs to the pratyaha, not to the angam. So the common work is kru and then shiya, the siyut agamaha. So krishiyas, krishiyastam, suttitoho. Krishiran by jasyaran. Then lopovior vali, krishiran. No new rules, all the same old rules. Krishishtaha. Here also krishiya plus thas. We get suttitoho. Then we get lopovior vali. Then of course the sandhi rules by the adishapatyayoho, and that's what krishishtaha. And then chunashtu krishishtaha. So we get krishiya plus thas. We get the sut agamaha, suttitoho. The takara takes the sut agamaha. And then we get lopovior vali, then adishapatyayoho 2 times, and then chunashtu krishishtaha. And krishiyastam, same thing as here, sut agamaha, suttitoho. Krishidvam. Okay, we'll do this in the next class. Okay, we'll do this in the next class. Krishidvam. And krishiya by itot. Sutram is ito. These are all old rules. So anyway, time is running out. I'm sorry, time is running out. Time is running out. By itot, so the it becomes at in ling, in ashiling, vidhiling, both. These are the jasharan, itot, sutyatoho, jejus. These apply for in vidhiling and ashiling commonly. So here we get krishiya, because of the it becomes akaraha, and krishi mahi, you get lopo vyor vali. So next class we'll start with from krishi dvam. Let me give you some homework. Next class will be on March 24th. So for homework, look at the sutram, please. 8378. Inashidvam lung litam dhongat. We'll use for that krishi dvam. Take it for homework. Also for homework, let's take 6467, which is the A lingi. It comes right below 6466, of course, which is well known to us. Bhumastha gapa jahati samhali. So take 6467, take 6468, take 8378, 8379 for homework. Let's stop with that. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Vyata Nishachara Chamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha Rama Nasti Paranam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittale Sada Bhotame Rama Mamuddhara Rama Rameti Rame Manorame Sahasanamatulyam Rama Nama Varanane Shri Rama Nama Varanana Undameti. Again, next class will be on March 24th. We'll come back in 15 minutes for Ramayana. Are we okay, Ravi?
Yes, Satish.
Okay. Thank you, and sorry for the delay. And Hari Om. We'll come back in 15 minutes for Ramayana.